This is episode 334 of Jumblethink.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Dr. Erin Smith. More about Dr. Smith in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumblethink, head on over to your favorite place to listen to podcasts, search for Jumblethink, and click subscribe. To make it even easier, if you head on over to jumblethink.com, you'll find links to places like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Pandora, and more. Now let's jump into today's episode. Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have a really cool show lined up for you today. Here's the deal. I met Dr. Smith a few years ago, actually, at New Media Summit, and then about a year and a half ago, I think it was, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, we were doing Facebook Lives, and we had him on to talk about the world of education and rethinking education and what he's doing in the STEM space. Super fun conversation. You can check that out on Facebook. But we've been wanting to have Dr. Smith, to have Erin back on the full podcast to talk more about education. And what a better time to do it than right now, when many of you might have kids at home and you're trying to think about creative ways that you can teach your kids, or you might be rethinking what education for your kids might look like going into the fall. And you're looking for new solutions. You're looking for new philosophies. Well, Dr. Smith has a really cool book out, and he has a new book on the way all about this topic. And not only is he an expert in it, but he teaches STEM day in and day out. Erin's first book is called Awakening Your STEM School, which enables educators and business leaders to take their current school and modernize it into an elite STEM site. His second book, Blank Check, What If You Were Asked to Reinvent Public Education, is his young adults novel about the quest to build the perfect public school. Erin also leads a really unique public high school called the Aviation Academy in Newport News, Virginia. It has classrooms and laboratories at Newport News, Williamsburg International Airport, and the school has affiliations with major businesses and industry throughout the region. Well, let's go ahead and join the conversation we had with today's guest, Dr. Erin Smith. Erin, so good to connect up with you again.
Yes, Michael, thank you. Been super excited to chat with you again. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been way too long. We met probably September of 2018, I want to say, at New Media Summit in Austin, Texas. Am I remembering this right?
You're exactly right. Yep.
You had, actually, that's not true. Now that I think about it, we met there for the first time, but we had been emailing back and forth for about a month or two before that about getting you on the show. And we did a Facebook Live with you, but we never actually did the episode. So I'm super excited to have you on.
Oh, I mean, the feeling's mutual. Like you said, it's been years. And to me, it's always been fun, because whenever I've talked to you or even seen and heard you on your podcast, you're genuine. And I love being around people that are themselves. So, yeah, I mean, I'm ready to do this. Let's roll.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation. To kind of give a little primer for everyone listening, Erin is really helping shape STEM in his area and being a voice for it in the country. He's written 2 books. The first one was called Awaken Your STEM School. I have that sitting right across from me. I can see it from here. And then his new book, which comes out in e-form May 5th and comes out on an actual print September 8th of this year, is called Blank Check. What if you were asked to reinvent education? Super cool about the conversation. I've been skimming through the new book, haven't had the chance to actually read paragraph by paragraph, but I'm loving what I'm seeing in there so far. Of course, I read Awaken Your STEM School about a year ago, so it's been a while. I want to start by hearing, as an educator, how did you get into the space of STEM? Because there is a traditional model of education which you know as well as probably anyone else, I am not infatuated with the old model of education. We're changing our systems now, and you're a part of blazing that. So how did that happen?
It really, growing up at home, my dad worked at the shipyard, so he started off as a sheet metal shop. And what he would do at home is he would tinker with wood. And of course, I got into the habit of learning how to drill, hammer, frame our garage. And over time, my experiences got even more excited when I got matched up with 3 math teachers from high school that just were fun. And some people think math is boring, but to me, I love the number crunching and I love seeing it put to action.
Right.
It continued in college because I actually had an internship at NASA for 4 summers doing various projects.
Oh, that's crazy.
Now, this is back when Mosaic was the thing. I don't know if you remember Mosaic. That's probably before your time.
Yeah.
But that was like one of the first main browsers.
Okay.
And we had to figure out what are some of the things that people could see. What are some things that we would want developers to develop in that first level of the World Wide Web? And just through this, I eventually became a math teacher because I love working with kids. I was a baseball coach for years. And that's really how I got involved in STEM, is just understanding that the things that we do daily apply to these 4 industries: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it's helped me to where I am now, working at Aviation Academy, which is a STEM center with a focus on aviation and manufacturing.
So you've said a lot in a few seconds there. You talk about NASA, you talk about those math teachers, you talk about playing baseball. You have all these different kind of paths. And it seems that in some ways, especially the aviation NASA aspect and then mathematics are coming together in what you're creating with the aviation school, STEM school.
It is. And that's the beauty of STEM. STEM synchronizes these 4 industries into powerful products, better learning, and a better employee.
Yeah.
And that's what schools need to be about, is producing the best employees through the skills that they've developed within their coursework. And I think it's everybody's responsibility.
Yeah, I would take that a step further. It's not about just creating great employees. It's about creating people who are thinking and able to create when they do that. When I think of STEM, I think about like hands-on. So talk to us a little bit about that approach of STEM versus a traditional model.
STEM is, to me, one of the highest levels forms of learning. When it's done right, you have active engagement. In other words, the teacher, the instructor, transfers the direct instruction, like the drill and kill, like they're taught for an hour or two, instead of letting the kids cut loose in a lab where they are supposed to design something with a 3D printer. They are actually involved in a makerspace trying to engineer a brand new electrical gadget.
That's cool.
That creates not only the creativity we want, but you're instilling technical skills, you're instilling autonomous learning, you're instilling soft skills.
Yeah.
And these are all the things that CEOs and HR folks want all the time.
Yeah. In the business world, which I play in quite a bit, from the tech space, being a web agency owner, working with high tech in Silicon Valley, we're always saying we don't want people to be taught what to believe. We want people to be taught how to learn and how to create out of that. And I think that's the power for me that I see in STEM or STEAM is it is much less about learning data and much more about learning methods of learning and engaging and being proactive.
Oh, exactly. You have to learn theory in conjunction with practice.
Yeah.
Because the theory is what's going to catapult the next level of creativity.
Yeah.
You think about Albert Einstein. How much theory did he study in terms of gravitational pull, theory of relativity, even time travel to an extent. And look at the great accomplishments he did for humanity. So it is definitely a blend, but making it active is really the secret to being successful in STEM in the classroom as well as in the workforce.
I remember hearing stories growing up, and I went to a really great high school, public school, Cumberland Valley High School in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. Loved being in public school, loved that experience, had a great experience. And they had great programs for the humanities, for the arts and music, and for, your traditional shop classes, whether it was ag-based, whether it was woodworking, whether it was, that was a little bit before CNCs and AI and, all of that. So we weren't, I'm too old to actually have experienced those kind of things. I was fortunate to be able to experience that kind of learning and have that as a part of the curriculum I went through. But for a lot of school districts, whether it was funding or whether it was philosophical views on learning, they lost that, shop mentality. They lost that humanities-based learning. What happened? How did we lose that in our system of education?
There was a culmination of things. Number one, part of the focus was parents and social media, if you will, believed that having a 4-year degree was going to make more money and more success than somebody with a 2-year degree.
Yeah.
But because the technology has changed, people are now getting associate's degree. They're now getting certifications where you're noticing that these guys, these technicians, are actually getting paid just as much, if not more money, than the professionals who have 4-year degrees.
Yeah.
And that, that is part of the facade that we have to help change in education. People think vocation is a bad word, and it's not. Vocation is the ability to process and bring the practices of a job to a classroom.
Yeah.
You think about your old shop class. How much time were you ripping wood, hammering nails on it, putting together a little birdhouse? Those are the little things that develop into the big construction and the big entrepreneurs that we want our society to have.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that, you talk about encompassing people in the learning process. If you're building, let's say that birdhouse you're just talking about, there's math involved with that. There's science involved with that. There's architecture and engineering and design involved in that. You're not just learning one subject at that point. You are learning a much more holistic, rich wealth of information. And then I hear over and over again, all of that stuff I studied in high school, all that stuff I studied at college, I've never used any of it. Yet you think of shop class, you think of some of the humanities that are taught, you think of your labs and science class, and you think of how that transfers so much better into the real world, if you will.
And it's true. Because you have active learners.
Yeah.
You have people that are using their senses.
Yeah.
They're actually connecting skills.
Yeah.
They're connecting subject matter and really synchronizing it all into one focused item.
Yeah.
In some classes, that could be very difficult.
Yeah.
In others, it can be extremely easy.
Yeah.
And it all boils down to how the teacher presents the material to the students.
Yeah.
What opportunities are they going to allow them to do? What resources do they have? And how are they tying it into the real world industry?
Yeah.
And that is another big issue that I still see is traditional teaching focuses on standardized testing.
Yeah.
When we really need to be focusing on developing the next future employee.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you develop them with the real life skills and the opportunities for internships, those scores are going to be there and even more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing is that when you move away from a standardized test, you open up so many different possibilities, possible solutions. And I can think of those people that have worked for me as employees in the coding space who very much had learned an absolute method. And they came in and goes, oh, that's the only way to do it. And that way didn't solve the client's needs, the desires, or the project specs. And then you have somebody else who went through maybe a trade school or took classes that were much more about active learning and less about theory and absolutes. And they were able to come up with creative solutions and say, oh, that is an approach, but here's one that actually solves the client's needs.
Mm-hmm. The story about Thomas Edison inventing 1,000 light bulbs. And what did he tell somebody? I just discovered 1,000 ways that it didn't work.
Right.
And I bet you that he used some of those theories and experiences into his next invention.
Right.
You know, a good inventor, just like a good entrepreneur, would want to keep some of those treasures that failed in the back burner so that when that opportunity comes, you go and refine it. Yeah. And then it opens up a new venue.
Yeah. Yeah. And learning wrong things of like the failure in the case of like what a lot of people may say with Edison and the light bulb lead to the success, but that is not lost learning. Failure is not lost learning. It is applying a whole bunch of other knowledge. You talked about how maybe something he learned there was applied to something else he invented. Mm-hmm. And the other thing about STEM that I really like especially is that I was a part of being on a panel of business owners that was working with a STEM school in Northern California, or school districts actually, and helping create curriculum. It's the partnership between what people want from the people that are being educated, the teachers, the professors, the administrators are actually working with business executives. They're working with business owners. They're working with small business owners to hear directly what are the kind of things that we need to be educating and teaching on, instead of going, well, here's our curriculum. They're recreating their curriculum every year based on the current trends, the current needs, the current systems, the evolution of the technologies that are happening so rapid right now.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
In the career technical education courses, you will find across the country there is a faster turnover in curriculum updates because of the federal dollars that are tied into it, but it's also combined with the insights and the wisdom of the businesses.
Yeah.
When you look at some of the other classes, let's say the core classes, you're not going to see as many real life experiences because seldom are they brought to the table, and seldom do educators know how to ask the right questions to bring them to the table to talk about math or to talk about science or to talk about an externship for teachers to go over the summer and bring it back into the courses for next year.
Yeah. We had a teacher from one of the school districts who actually sat in our company and did work with us in tandem to learn what we were doing and how we were approaching development in real world scenarios. And he left going, oh, wow, I just had no idea what was relevant and what wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, the win for that is the companies can learn a lot from these teachers too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think about professional development that goes inside corporate Fortune 500 companies. You bring the right teachers on board, they're going to teach you how to teach to neurodiverse employees. They're going to teach you how to handle time stress management. Yeah. They're going to teach you all these things because teachers have endured a lot because there's just so many things that they deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, so true. So true. We're going to be talking about your book in the second segment and how you're rethinking education and using story to drive that. As we wrap up this first segment, though, I wanted to take a moment and ask you a little bit about how coronavirus and COVID-19 is impacting education right now. I know that the teachers I talk to, we have a lot of teachers that we go to church with, and they're talking about what they're trying to learn and how they're trying to evolve. We were talking offline about it. I hear from students how it's changing for them and that experience is changing. What are you seeing in education because of this pandemic?
I think number one, everybody realizes there's no magic bullet. There's no silver bullet to solving this.
Yeah.
And it really is a combination of bringing the best resources and the smartest people at your table to figure out the best system for your division or for your kids. You also have to make sure you're communicating to everybody within the organization, to the parents, to let them know that we are still holding school.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, educators are super good at sharing resources.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to steal, if you don't mind me saying that, because we do.
No, nothing wrong with that.
We're borrowing resources because you've got children at stake.
Yeah.
You've got children who need consistency.
Mm-hmm.
You've got kids who want to learn, and you've got kids who need to learn to get their mind off of situations at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, my thing is this: the heroes that are in the hospitals, that are on the front lines, that are also in the classrooms, that are on the police and fire rescues. These guys are all true heroes because it's uncharted waters across the world.
Yeah.
And that is so appreciative because we have a good in some spots. We don't have a good in some spots, but I'm proud of everybody not giving up.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think the long-term ramifications of this is? Is this going to spark more conversations about how we educate and why we approach the way we approach? Do you think we're going to see an increase of homeschooling? Do you think that we're going to see more engagement in STEM? Like, how do you see the fallout from this for the years to come?
I see a lot of opportunity here.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers have been taught traditional learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the direct instruction.
Yeah.
And they know how to use platforms to teach distance learning, but I can't say that the majority of teachers know how to utilize it with fidelity.
Okay.
And I think that's something that nobody really prepared for. And you look at this, especially up north, you've got a snowstorm and people are going to be out for a week. You crank up your distance learning, school keeps going.
Mm.
And that's going to save the division dollars. More importantly, it's also going to give the kids consistency in the classroom.
Right.
That I think is another beautiful thing of this. There's also going to be some indirect opportunities that are going to become of this. Distance, virtual on-site learning as compared to being in the classroom is to me the same as working at home, e-commuting versus working in an office.
Yeah.
You have to learn time management. You have to be self-disciplined. You have to realize that the skills that you're doing now in these classes are going to help down the road when you got that degree.
Do you think we'll go back to the old style of learning where all the students show up every day in classrooms, or do you think those days have shifted because of the technology and because of dealing with COVID-19, that's actually started to spark a change in that approach?
In the early years, we're talking like pre-K, maybe through 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
You got to have the direct connection because kids are not going to know what to do, and they need a lot of practice. They need a lot of reinforcement and guided supports.
Mm.
You also have the children who are English language learners in America.
Right.
You also have the special needs kids who need these supports, such as read alouds, such as small groups. So, there's a lot of intricacies you've got to work out with distance learning. Mm-hmm. So for the next 5 to 10 years, if distance learning is going to be a theme, I think there's going to have to be a lot of conversations, not only within the school systems, but also with the companies that serve these platforms. How are we going to best serve all of these kids?
Yeah. A lot of conversations that need to come out of this, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
It is. And I don't think anything's impossible.
Right.
I just remind everybody, we're only bound by our imagination.
Right.
And if you want something bad enough, you don't make excuses. You go get it.
Yeah.
And that is our job as educators.
Mm.
We know we're locked in with money. We have no control over the money.
Right.
But what we are having is the availability to imagine, to dream, and to find out how we can make it better for the next level, whether it's tomorrow or the next year. It's the same. You keep going after it and you don't give up until you perfected that one niche.
Right. Crazy time to be alive. Crazy time to be able to explore that creativity and that imagination right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
In some ways, I think a lot of people are scared, and I get that. I think a lot of people are uneasy about the uncertainty, and I get that. But I get excited about the fact that this is causing these conversations you're talking about. It's causing rethinking. It's causing us to be creative and innovative and use that imagination. I think there's a lot of gifts that we're being given through this season.
You are. And I like this, making good out of something bad.
Right.
Because it seems like all the news does is just flood you with doom and despair and gloom.
Yes.
But you also see pockets of opportunity.
Yes.
Where you got hope. The other day I saw something, I don't know if you saw this, but a high school student is making masks out of his 3D printer.
Wow. I didn't see that
one. He's giving it to the medical support staffs at their local hospital, I believe. And this is more than one place across America that's happening.
Wow.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
For a kid to put that on their resume,
yeah,
that they did this in a time of crisis, not only shows social responsibility, it shows ingenuity and determination.
Right.
So there's heroes.
Yes.
There's heroes within our kids, just like there's heroes that are doing everything they can right now to contain this thing.
For you, how do you find purpose in what you do?
I wake up every day knowing that I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I want the best for my kids. And the only way I feel like I can contribute is to make a difference in a classroom, make a difference where I work at as an educator.
Yeah. Because
what comes around goes around.
Yeah.
And we need to help one another.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of manhood. It's not to be rich. It's not to be the most successful. It's to live in harmony. It is to live as a unified society as best we can, and also to advance our children to the next level.
Yeah. Now, this is a loaded question because, 3 months ago, this was a normal question we asked, and it was no big deal. But now it seems like the answer is pretty standard. What is one challenge you're currently working to overcome?
Other than trying to keep my sanity when the dogs are barking and the kids are laughing when I'm trying to work, I would say trying to figure out how to make distance learning better.
Yeah. Love that. And what's the next big dream, idea, or goal that you have?
Oh, I would love for the book to go viral.
Yeah.
Where it becomes a discussion everywhere.
Yeah.
And you see pockets of small transformations starting to take shape across the communities. And, seeing the changes overcome in the world where maybe it's one step better.
Yeah.
And that's my dream.
Super cool. We're going to take a break right here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the book that Erin was just talking about. It's called Blank Check. What if you were asked to reinvent education? Super excited to talk about this. We'll be right back. There is a lot going on here at Jumblethink, and we want to make sure that you stay in the loop. So how do you stay up to date on everything Jumblethink? Head on over to jumblethink.com where you can sign up for our email newsletter. You can also click those links to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter and connect there too. We're excited about some amazing things we're working on, and we want to make sure you keep up to date on everything that's happening. So head on over to jumblethink.com now and sign up for that newsletter, or let's connect on those amazing social channels. Now let's jump back into today's conversation with Dr. Erin Smith. We are back with Dr. Erin Smith. All right, before we get going, important question. Where can people find and connect with you?
So people can connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Erin Smith, PhD, and my email is aaron@wr.solutions.
Awesome. And we're going to put those links in the episode notes. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to go far. They're probably right below where you're listening. So go check those out and do connect with Erin. Definitely check out this book. Really good stuff there. You know, we mentioned this book before we took the break, and we've mentioned it a couple times in the show. It's called Blank Check. What if you were asked to reinvent education? It comes out in ebook form May 5th, and it is out in print September 8th of 2020. This is a unique book. A lot of the books I read are teaching books from the standpoint of it's very systematic. This is what you should do. This is how you should approach the problem around a specific topic. Maybe it's leadership. Maybe it's development. Maybe it's simple things on team building or whatever the topic is that I'm studying. So in the business world, we have a lot of those, but the books that stand out to me, even in the business space, are those books that almost make it allegorical in a way where story is wrapped up with what you're teaching, the questions you're asking. With this book, you've decided to go a different route to explore STEM, to explore how we learn. Talk to us about that and why you're taking that approach.
Right after I finished Awakening Your STEM School, the co-writer, Bud Ramey, and I were just sitting down and just having a beer and shooting a bowl because, great things happen when alcohol is involved. We started talking about it. He says, what are your plans next? And I said, I'm doing a STEM 2.0. And he looked at me funny. He says, why are you making another cookbook? And I looked at him kind of funny. He says, do something that's going to make an impact. The first one, yes, it's going to make an impact. But you need to make something that is going to draw the world's attention to it, not just educators. And if you do an academic book at such a high level, it's going to draw some interest, but it's really not going to gather the momentum that you want it to be.
Yeah.
So we kept tossing around ideas, and it's like a week later, we just called each other over the phone and started talking. He said, it'd be kind of cool if you could just reinvent school the way you wanted to. And I said, yeah, it's like if you had a blank check. So right there, we mirrored exactly the concept we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we used kind of like Andy Weir's concepts where you got real pieces of things weaved in. Like some of the studies that are brought in there are real.
Yeah.
But it's developed through a story where you understand how some of the characters are undergoing today's situations.
Okay.
And by doing that, you empathize with the hero. You empathize with the story because we've all had great education experiences. We've all had poor teachers at some point or another.
Yeah.
And by weaving it together into a story, number one, it takes you take away the binds of saying you cannot do this because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Fiction, young adult book, you can basically have a blank sheet of paper and write anything you want with it. And that was the purpose of it. And we focused on making it a young adult book.
Okay.
Because the young adults are really going to be the ones who are going to be the catalyst in this transformation.
Yeah.
It needs to be in the schools. It has to start in the schools.
Yeah.
But you also have to have the public and the parents and the workforce and the government all understand that change has to occur. And especially in America, you're dealing with a model that's over 2.5 centuries old. And I can't think of too many companies that have lasted long with 2.5 century old model of doing business.
So it would have probably been bad if Ford kept the same equipment for the last 120 years?
Yeah, I think I think the Model Ts would have been nothing compared to where we are now.
Yeah.
Um, it and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
The blank check gives readers that what if question and puts themselves in that position. What if I can reinvent education?
Yeah.
Because the truth of that answer is you can.
Yeah.
In your community, you can reinvent education.
Yeah.
You can start a change.
Yeah.
You can start a revolution. I say that in a positive way.
Right.
So that you show that there are times and opportunities that are not being met in today's classrooms.
So is the story that you're telling one to provoke more questions, or is it to walk a student or maybe even an educator through a specific pattern? Like, are you trying to teach through this? Are you trying to be a spark for conversation? Like, what is the end goal for you in this book?
You know, and if I can cheat, I'm going to say all of those.
Okay, that's fine.
Because the secret to a great education is going to reside within the community.
Okay.
Your community is going to have different needs than my community. So there may be more questions raised than necessarily in mine. So mine might just need a little bit more infrastructure in one capacity.
Okay.
Another one, you want to connect so that urban areas and rural areas have the same resources. You want kids to be gainfully employed and successful, regardless of where they are and what they do.
Yeah.
And that's going to be through a series of all those things. Asking questions, creating discussions, getting involved, and really connecting the dots that have not been formed yet.
Okay, you said something there that really caught my attention, and it's not something that I think I've ever processed. Something that, you hear and you just go, oh, yeah. But for whatever reason, it stood out to me, and that's that you need to know your community to understand how to educate them. And that whole concept of, global or, unified standards across all of the U.S. for every student, for everyone, or specific approaches or curriculums. I know a lot of the curriculums, even some of the history books or whatever that are written, they change them a little bit during from geographic sphere to geographic sphere, but overall that book is the same and it's pretty universal. Are you saying that part of the problem and one of the things that we need to address is understanding the community we serve, and that changes how we educate?
It has to.
Okay.
It has to. I read a study last week.
Okay.
I think it was the PwC network. They polled 40,000 students across the world, over 150 countries. And they said only 1 out of 3 kids feel like they have been prepared for work from their education.
Okay.
Now, go with me for a second.
All right.
When you read a little deeper into this article, it said nearly 4 out of 10 want a career that's not in their community.
Wow.
So in today's world, kids that want those careers are going to move away from their community.
Okay.
So you're going to lose the family connection.
Okay.
You're going to lose the tax base.
Okay.
You're going to lose the productivity of the environment, the work. You're going to lose some great citizens in that community. And that's why I'm sharing with everybody, we've got to get back to our roots, because it does take a village to raise a child.
Right.
No one person can do it. Teachers have the same responsibility just as much as the parents do. And I get it. We've got parents who are working 2 and 3 jobs. I'm not saying they're not doing their job, but they should be able to at least be a phone call away if a teacher needs assistance.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Things like that, where teachers can also empathize that child may be the brother or sister who has to watch the little ones for 3 hours until mom and dad get back in the house and they can pick up on their homework.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a little give and take here. So the only way you're going to do that is just to bring the community together to make them aware of the urgency for these changes.
So does that mean that you have to take some of the power away from the globalization of education and give more power to the individual educator to create curriculum that works for their students?
Yes. You've got to take a little power away from everybody.
Okay.
And I say everybody because when everybody gives a little, everybody gains a lot as a collective whole. Teachers need creativity because they feel like they're already locked into testing. And basically, teachers are teaching the test when they need to be teaching the skills and the content.
Yeah.
And that's a scary concept because we don't want to fail our schools.
Right.
And that's how we're measured as a success, is the grades that are put on our school's report card.
And it sounds like that's not the appropriate measuring stick.
No. In my opinion, I think it should be one of the pieces, but not the end all be all. I think you need to have other capacities in there, such as what kind of products can be evaluated and sent up for final registration, for certification. Mm-hmm. What kind of certifications are every child getting, regardless of background, regardless of ability, regardless of career interest? What kind of teacher quality is being provided? That needs to be evaluated. And, that kind of formula is going to really involve some discussions, and it's going to involve a lot of money.
Yeah.
When you talk about money, standardized testing is done through multiple choice usually because that's the cheapest way to grade stuff.
Wow.
As compared to those that have to write an essay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you see multiple choice test as the primary modality, because it's less work behind the scenes to do it.
And you would never, I have a good friend who ended up working at Apple pretty high up. They're not giving him a multiple choice test to validate his knowledge base, his understanding. They're not. There are multiple interviews, and it's a very different approach where they're giving you a problem. They want to see your work. They want to see your approach, and they're not looking for necessarily the right path. They're looking for the right outcomes.
That's it right there. And that's what I was telling you about going back to the test.
Yeah.
Teachers are teaching the test instead of teaching the skills and the content. The other thing, too, is sometimes teachers are locked in because they don't know what's out there.
Wow.
The businesses haven't communicated with the schools, or the schools haven't communicated with the businesses to find out what the needs are.
I think from the business side of things, other than my experience in Northern California, where we were approached by a school that says we're working on a curriculum around coding. We want to get coders involved with this, agency owners, to talk about what are they looking for from their developers they bring on and stuff like that. You don't like that. I don't hear many business people saying, hey, schools have approached me in this, you know, and that breaks my heart, because there's a lot of business people who want to feel like they have input there, but they just feel like the systems are so rigid that there isn't space for it, or desire from the educators, or the freedom for the educators to actually take the advice and do something with it.
Depends on who you are and where you are.
Yeah.
For some people, they may not have the freedom because their curricula is so locked down, they don't have the availability to change things. For some, they just don't know it. They don't know how to make that change and that turnover.
Yeah.
For some, you got those that are just overwhelmed already and don't want anything else to do just because they feel like they would fail at it.
Yeah.
And I hope people understand, I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody, because my philosophy is we just need to fix it.
It's not an individual's fault. It's a system's fault.
It's not. To me, I'm not political. but I believe we all have to agree that our children are our most precious resource. And to me, that should be one of the top 3 priorities we need to focus on. When you focus on that, you will eliminate poverty, you will reduce homelessness, teen pregnancies, you will improve workforce development. There's just so much at stake if you put it in the right places.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, there is so much deeper we could go into this. Maybe we should do that in the weeks to come, get you back on, talk more about education. It's an area that's dear to my heart, an area that I'm passionate about, but an area that I don't think is overall, it doesn't have a lot of answers that are great right now. And I love that there are more and more and more people like you who are saying, maybe there's a different path. Maybe there's a better path. Maybe there's a more relevant to where we are in culture and society path for the future.
There has to be a different path.
Yeah.
Because failure is not an option.
Right.
We as parents, we don't want our children to fail.
Yeah.
Because it's a reflection of us internally.
Yeah.
What did we do right? What did we do wrong?
Yeah.
If we fail, everything's at stake. I cannot stress that enough.
We're going to have to wrap here for this segment, but when we come back, it's rapid fire questions. We'll be right back with Dr. Erin Smith. It's hard to believe that we already have over 330 episodes of Jumblethink. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, you've probably missed some of those episodes along the way. Episodes with Hollywood actors, Olympians, authors, entrepreneurs, startup founders, and executives. There's a lot of amazing conversations, and hopefully by hearing the stories of others who have turned their dreams into reality, it will spark something inside of you to chase your dreams. So whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, make sure to go check out some of those past episodes. How do you do it? Head on over to jumblethink.com. You can find links to all of our episodes there, along with links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, and probably wherever you listen to podcasts. So head on over, subscribe to Jumblethink, and catch up on some of those amazing past conversations. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with Dr. Erin Smith.
Mettez le contact, reposez votre bras et attendez. Restez calme pendant...
We are back with Dr. Erin Smith. All right, it's rapid fire question time. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's roll.
All right. The first question is, as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An F-15 fighter pilot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was when Top Gun came out.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was my thing. Speed, the haircut.
The style, the swagger, the whole thing.
Exactly, you know, and the motorcycle helped also. So it just seemed to have everything, you know, that a 17-year-old boy wants.
Yeah. And who doesn't like a beautiful Ducati? I mean, if you're a guy, I think it's just, you got to like it.
I'm going to go there, but certainly, I mean, that's definitely, you know, a highlight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to do one of those flight experiences where you get into a fighter jet.
I've always wanted to.
You should do it.
Always wanted to. We have some simulators at aviation, so every now and then I'll climb in one.
Yeah.
The results aren't good, but it is actually fun. You know, our instructor says that if you can walk away from a landing, that's a good landing. I'm like, not always the case though.
Yeah, the government doesn't really smile upon like multi-million-dollar destruction of planes. They don't like that.
No. Not to mention the paperwork and the hours on hours of justifying what happened is not a fun ordeal.
Yeah. What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Write it down.
Love that. What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
Let's stop being so negative.
Love that too. What do you want your legacy to be?
Hopefully a change agent where people are recognizing that it is time to make the change and to jump into the next level of learning.
Where do you find inspiration?
A lot of places. A lot of times I hear the stories about the kids that I serve at school, and I hear some of the horrific things. Child abuse, for example, or you've got families who literally have lost 4 jobs in 1 year.
Wow.
They're homeless.
Wow.
You've got kids that have had domestic assaults in their family. And, things like that make me realize how blessed I am and what I need to do to keep going to hopefully fix them and make them a little bit better.
What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
Wow, one book every dreamer should read. I'm going to have to go with my favorite, The Martian by Andy Weir.
You're the second person. I've never had anyone mention that book, but you're the second person in a month that has. I need to check it out.
So, you know the background behind the story?
No.
So, Andy Weir is this brilliant scientist, engineer, and he was writing chapter books. And he was getting input from people based upon what he posted out there on the chapters. Of course, he's stuck in Mars, and he's got to survive through these storms and all these other, adventures. And he has to think of survival, not only day to day, but also long-term survival.
Yeah.
And that's what I think dreamers and creative people need to do, is to find something that they can resonate with for thinking of today's problem, but also focusing on keeping that dream alive down the road.
Love that. Love that. For you, how do you define success? Success
to me is defined when I know I've made a difference. Some way, somehow. Could be a smile on the face. It could be a hug. A paycheck doesn't mind either. But I would say usually it's the small intrinsic things, that I realize that I've made a difference.
What is one trend you're currently excited about?
That I'm excited about. I hope the Redskins will win more games this year.
I'm an Eagles fan, so,
Okay. I like the Redskins when they win. So you haven't heard a whole lot from me in the last few years, but, hopefully this year, if we be 500, I'll be ecstatic with it.
What is one habit you find helpful in your life?
Getting up early. Depending on the day, I'm up sometimes 3:30, sometimes 4:30, and I use those 2 and 2.5 hours to get my stuff together. Writing a book, you basically have to discipline yourself just like you're working out.
Yeah.
You've got to carve in time. You've got to create those structures, and you've got to keep focused on that end result. And that's what that time has done for me. And now it's almost second nature, where I'm getting up pretty much without the alarm and saying, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's what I've got to do. And I kind of shut it down right around 8 o'clock so that I can kind of get going with my schoolwork.
What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
One thing I wish I would have learned when I started out was that I wish I wouldn't have been so impulsive on things. One of my things to do is if I have a gut reaction, I will just go full throttle in. And I think age and wisdom have taught me that's not always the best approach.
Yeah. So
I still do it, unfortunately, from time to time, but I am better at trying to take a step back, look at it from every angle before you respond. Or have you completed everything that needs to be done before you get to the submission level?
Yeah. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing?
Hopefully speaking, professional speaker, and just sharing the stories of success and still helping kids across the world. And through that, I like to travel.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, hopefully that career opportunity will open back up again one day when we can actually travel and do things.
I think that would be amazing.
And our final rapid fire question is, what is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
I want to be a New York Times bestseller.
Love that.
So, gonna try.
Nice.
Gonna try and hopefully see what happens.
Keep on writing.
Yep.
As we wrap up, we always like to leave our guests have a final thought. What is your final thought for us today?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your show, Mike. I mean, it's always fun being a part of this. I guess to kind of share with everybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in the world, you make a difference. And what you do can either amplify somebody's dream or amplify somebody's hope, or you can discredit them and basically shun them away from what could be something great for their lives.
Yeah.
And it's important that we keep in mind to find the positive side of things and to be a part of the positive side rather than being so pessimistic.
It has been a lot of fun chatting with you. We could chat for hours about this. Such an important topic. Erin, thanks so much for taking time out and being on the show.
Oh, thank you again. The honor is mine.
Once again, I want to thank Dr. Erin Smith for taking time out and being on the show with us today. You can find links to his books and everything else he's doing in the episode notes. Now, here's my final thought for you today. You know, we talked a lot about education and how we do education. But whether you are 12 or you're 78 or 108, learning is something that is significant. One of the best things you can do is investing time into yourself, to growing new skills, learning things you're passionate about, exploring new possibilities, and education is the form you can do it through. That may look like going back for continuing education, but it could also look like picking up a book or having a conversation with an expert. If you stop learning, you're really stunting your growth. You're stunting the possibilities of what you can create and what you can do. That's my challenge today. Do something today to continue to learn, to grow. Now, if you have a specific dream or idea, take some time today to learn something that helps you grow into that dream, to make that dream a reality. If you don't, maybe explore some things that you might think you could have a passion for or that you're interested in. You don't have to use traditional methods, although sometimes a traditional method of education is the best path. Maybe you take a master class, or maybe you watch YouTube videos. Maybe you pick up that book. But no matter how you reach learning, take some time today to invest in yourself and learn something. Explore, be creative, and have some fun. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Now it's your turn to dream big and to change the world around you.
Sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.